70. As a result of an improper warm-up while lifting weights, Lee severely strains the fourth sacral nerve in his lower back. It's an injury that will continue to plague him for the remainder of his life. The injury leaves Lee virtually bedridden for a period of 6 months. His doctors tell him he may never be able to kick again.
For Bruce to be lying down in bed 24 hours a day for approximately about 6 months was an impossible thought. You know, you cannot contain him like that. But he did, because he knew that if there were any future, even to walk normally, he would need to give this time to heal. So he spent a great deal of time resting flat on his back for quite a long time, and then also, you know, just sitting in a chair. But he was not one to just waste time. So he spent this amount of time doing a lot of researching of all of his vast library of books, which were books on the martial arts, all combative arts, all hand-to-hand arts, whether they be Western, Eastern, modern, or ancient, all types of philosophy, psychology, especially in the motivational field now that he was injured and his future was in jeopardy. He felt he needed to self-motivate himself all the time.
Unable to put his energy to use physically, Lee now channels it mentally. The writings of the Buddha, Alan Watts, Carl Rogers, Lao Tzu, Friedrich Perls, Daisetsu Suzuki, and Jiddu Krishnamurti become his constant companions. Of these authors, Lee is particularly taken by the thoughts of Krishnamurti, who states that truth cannot be organized without invalidating it.
You have to be a light to yourself. Not the light of a professor or an analyst or a psychologist or the light of Jesus or the light of the Buddha. You have to be a light to yourself in a world that is utterly becoming dark.
I believe that part of the concept that he enjoyed so much about Krishnamurti's philosophy was one of self-reliance, and if you're looking for truth, you must look inward rather than outward.
Lee begins to write about his new insight and its application to martial art. His writings will fill 7 large volumes. Slowly, Lee begins to battle back. Although the back injury will prove to be a permanent problem, within 6 months he has proven both the naysayers and the medical community wrong. Not only is he able to kick again, he becomes a better martial artist than he ever was before. Lee's harrowing experience, coupled with his new insight, serve to underscore for him the validity of his belief that there is no help but self-help, including help in the form of instruction in the art of unarmed combat. Even his own beloved creation, Jeet Kune Do, by far the most scientific of all martial arts, is not exempt from his solvent analysis. Lee sees his error in the fact that he had been striving to create the ultimate way or style of martial art to teach to his students. First, he thought he had it with the Chinese way of martial art. Then, more recently, in his newly created Way of the Intercepting Fist. But Lee has now come to see that the ultimate truth does not reside in ways or styles, but within the soul of each individual.
I do not believe in styles anymore. I mean, I do not believe that there is such thing as like Chinese way of fighting or the Japanese way of fighting or whatever way of fighting, because unless human beings have 3 arms and 4 legs, we will have a different form of fighting. But basically, we have only 2 hands and 2 feet. So styles tends to not only separate man, you know, because they have their own doctrines, and then the doctrine became the gospel truth, you know, that you cannot change, you know. But if you do not have styles, if you just say, well, here I am, you know, as a human being, how can I express myself totally and completely?
Then it's just 2 people who are being aware of their own movements, who are observing the other person's movements and being able to fit in with that person's movements, so that there's no set pattern of movements, no, well, when he does this, then I do this. It's just a total freedom to react to what the other person does. In fact, Bruce inscribes it perfectly on the back of this medallion, where he wrote the words that have become his motto. And it says, using no way as way, having no limitation as limitation. Over the years, this phrase has been somewhat misinterpreted, and people think of using no way as way to mean anything I do is okay, and anything I do is my way. I don't think Bruce really intended it to mean that way. He just meant not to be boxed in by a certain way, so that you never get into a situation where there's only one response. You adapt to what the situation calls for. I think Bruce had that down pretty well.
When there is a way, then there lies the limitation.
To me, okay, to me, ultimately, martial art means honestly expressing yourself. Now, it is very difficult to do. I mean, it is easy for me to put on a show and be cocky, and be flooded with a cocky feeling and then feel like pretty cool and all that. Or I can make all kinds of phony things, you see what I mean, blinded by it. Or I can show you some really fancy movement. But to express oneself honestly, not lying to oneself, and to express myself honestly, that, my friend, is very hard to do.
That's the whole key right there. You know, do you know yourself? Do you know your skills? Do you know your weaknesses? Are you able to adjust your life to compensate for whatever's happening and take advantage of whatever's happening in terms of pluses and minuses? That was his approach, and he was an incredible example of that. You know, a walking model of that.
In his critically acclaimed performance on the television series Longstreet, Lee attempts to teach his student, played by James Franciscus, this higher purpose of his martial art.
Lee, I want you to teach me what you did the other night.
I already told Miss Bell I can't.
I'm willing to empty my cup in order to taste your tea.
Your open-mindedness is cool, but it doesn't change anything. I don't believe in system, Mr. Longstreet, nor in method. And without system, without method, what's to teach?
But you had to learn. You weren't born knowing how to take apart 3 men in a matter of seconds.
True, but I found the cause of my ignorance.
Well, help me find mine.
Having discovered the truth of using no way as way, having no limitation as limitation, Bruce Lee's mission now becomes to communicate this truth to the world. The most effective approach, he decides, is not in private one-on-one instruction, but in bringing this truth to the big screen, his quest to create a new genre of film that will reveal the higher purpose of martial art, his challenge to overcome the prejudices of Hollywood.